Crypto taxes. You probably don't want to hear that word. When it came to crypto taxes, for me, I just kind of wanted to bury my head in the sand a little bit. But it's important that we know the rules surrounding crypto tax. Some of the rules are still coming out to this day. Some of them are pretty new. Some of these rules that I mentioned today are literally just over a month old. So I'm definitely going to assume there's some more changes that will come in the future, especially when the HMRC actually learn more about what some of these subjects will entail. Yeah, some of these rules don't really make much sense. I'll explain which ones I don't particularly agree with, but we're going to get straight into it. Before I get into the video, I do want to mention that none of this is financial advice and none of this is tax advice either. If you really need help on taxes, then I would go and suggest that you see a financial advisor and also a tax advisor as well. Any information that's in this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. And with that being said, we'll get into the video. So crypto taxes in the UK are split into two different forms of taxes. You've got the income tax and you've also got the capital gains tax. We're going to talk about the main uses of crypto and what category they fall into, as some of them can fall into both categories. It just depends on the situation. We'll start off by looking at the capital gains tax. A capital gains tax is the tax you pay for an asset that's appreciated in value. If I bought Bitcoin at £10,000 and then I sold Bitcoin at £20,000, the £10,000 profit would then be subject to capital gains tax. What's good about this is that the capital gains tax has a allowance of £12,300 tax-free every year. Anything above this amount then falls into the basic rate of up to £37,700, and that's at a taxable rate of 10%. Anything above that, £37,000, will then be taxed as 20%. In terms of like the basic rules for capital gains tax, you might have to pay capital gains tax anytime that you sell your tokens, exchange your crypto tokens for another crypto token, use your tokens to pay for any goods or services, and giving away your tokens to another person, unless it's a gift to your spouse or civil partner. We'll go into the gift section now. You don't have to pay capital gains tax on assets you give or sell to your husband, wife, or civil partner, unless you are separated and you do not live together all in the same tax year. Well, that would be pretty unlucky if you did that, or if you gave them goods for their business to then sell on. If they do decide to sell the asset, your spouse or civil partner will have to pay any capital gains on that. Their capital gain is calculated on the difference in value between when you first owned it and then when they decided to sell it. You don't actually have to pay any capital gains tax on assets you give away to charity though. I'd say that one way to sort of save on paying as much tax is to just sort of keep under your capital gains allowance. If you trade in stocks and shares as well as crypto, this might be quite hard, but I suppose a decent way is to make use of your ISA every year. If you have a stocks and shares ISA, you don't actually pay any capital gains tax on that, and there's an allowance on that. And it's quite high. So if you just make sure that when you are trading stocks and shares, if you're doing it in more of a passive way, it's just to use your ISA. Unfortunately, you can't put crypto in an ISA. I've looked at that already, and at the moment it's not possible. But yeah, just try and keep under the £12,300 mark a year. You won't have to pay any capital gains tax. So I would suggest that you only sell when you need to. As I mentioned before, the one thing that was a bit confusing to me when I first heard it, and it will be to other people as well, is the fact that any transaction that's made is subject to capital gains tax. Like any transaction between, say, buying Bitcoin and then exchanging it for Ethereum, that's still subject to a capital gains tax, which is very annoying, because think about how many transactions that you do make every single day, especially the more active users in crypto. It's a lot of transactions to keep a hold of. There is software out there that will help you file your crypto taxes, and I'm going to do a separate video on that just further on down the line. So stay tuned for that one. We'll go on to sort of the income tax side of things now. There's many different ways of having to pay income tax, and we'll talk about the first one being mining. Mining crypto has some different rules. If you are mining tokens as an individual, then the pound sterling value of the tokens that you're awarded for mining will be taxable as miscellaneous income. If you decide to then hold the crypto that is rewarded on mining, then you might have to pay a capital gains tax when you decide to sell the asset in the future. There are some expenses that can be claimed from any mining operations that you do, but it's a little bit confusing. It's a bit of a grey area still. So as I said before, if you need help with any tax advice, don't just take this video as advice. Go and see a proper professional. HMRC states that the cost of mining activities such as electricity and equipment can't be deducted as part of the capital gains tax, but it doesn't state whether it can be deducted as part of the income tax. So that's where it's a bit of a grey area. One thing to sort of note with all of these allowances, you do have access to something called a trading allowance, which is £1,000, and this applies to both trading and miscellaneous income. So essentially, if your mining income is less than £1,000 a year and that's your only source of trading income, then you don't have to pay any tax on that. However, if you do have another form of trading income, such as being self-employed as maybe like a plumber or a construction worker or something like that, then that also bleeds into the trading allowance as well. We'll go on to the topic of staking now. Staking has very similar rules to mining, being that the pound sterling value at the time of the receipt of these tokens being rewarded are taxed as miscellaneous income. If the individual decides to keep the rewarded tokens, then they may have to pay capital gains tax on those in the future. And onto the topic of airdrops. Airdrops is a bit of a funny one as well. Income tax will not always be applied if the tokens are received without doing anything in return related to a service. So that's always nice. You don't have to pay income tax on that because you're not actually doing anything. You are just being given tokens. However, airdrops that are provided in return for a service are subject to income tax. In terms of what they deem related to a service, I'm not quite sure. I don't know whether they mean that if I like a post on Twitter, follow their Twitter, is that classed as doing something in return for an airdrop? I would say it is, but I don't know how strict they are on them sort of rules. But I suppose one major thing to take from this is that both types of airdrops are subject to capital gains tax. So if you decide to sell the airdropped asset, say you get airdropped £1,000, you're subject to capital gains on that full £1,000. Because you've not actually bought it at a certain price to sell it at a certain price. Your ROI is essentially unlimited for that. One thing I found interesting now when I was going through sort of the different tax rules for the various crypto services was the wrapping tax for the UK. As you know, that in some instances you need to wrap your coins before you can deposit them into a smart contract. So that's like swapping Ethereum for wrapped Ethereum. They don't really have any guidance specifically on wrapping tokens at the moment, but you are still swapping one token for another. So they will most likely just see that as a transaction, so you'll probably have to pay capital gains on that as well. And because you are swapping one Ethereum for one wrapped Ethereum, there's going to be no capital gains on there, but you still have to declare that as a transaction. It's the same when you're swapping things like USDT for USDC. As stupid as it sounds, you're still going to have to provide that in your tax returns in the future anyway. I wanted to go over also the liquidity mining tax in the UK. So I wanted to go over the liquidity providing section of tax as well for the UK. These are the rules that are very new. I think these were made in February alongside some of the lending rules as well, especially for the DeFi section. So I am expecting these rules to change, and I don't fully agree with some of the rules that we're going to talk about now, but it does not matter if I agree with it or not. It's not me that makes the rules. So simply adding and removing liquidity is subject to a capital gains tax. You'll also pay taxes on the rewards that you have earned from providing liquidity, and it depends on how you earn them. If you receive new tokens or coins in return for the liquidity provided, then you'll likely pay income tax. If the value of your liquidity tokens goes up and you make a transaction to then realize that gain, you'll pay capital gains tax. If you receive liquidity pool tokens in return for your capital that increased in value, and you've realized that gain by exchanging those tokens, then this will be seen as a capital gains transaction. One of the last parts of the rules we'll talk about is the DeFi lending section. So before we get into this, we'll say that the word disposal means sell and the word acquisition means buy. They just use more complicated words. For the lender, when you loan out your crypto, you have to make a disposal, which is a sell. Then that is subject to capital gains tax. When you receive your crypto back after the loan, your capital is then treated as an acquisition. Any return on the loan that you've got, such as interest, that's not treated as an acquisition. Your return would then be subject to income tax. If you decide you want to borrow crypto, then a loan is treated as an acquisition, a buy. Any loan interest payments are an allowable expense, and when you pay back the loan, this can be treated as a disposition, which is a sell, and this is subject to a capital gains tax as well. So that's the bit I don't really agree with too much. I don't understand, if I deposit Ethereum, why should I have to realize those gains? Because I'm not selling Ethereum, I'm just moving it out of my wallet onto a lending platform. I don't think that should really be treated as a disposition or a sell. But I don't know, like I said, the rules came out in February this year, so I'm sure that things will change as they gain a little bit more knowledge about how these platforms work. If you do love NFTs as much as I do, then you also have to pay tax on these, and I'll sort of explain that now as well. A transaction involving an NFT is likely to be subject to income tax where it can be attributed to a job, basically. So if you're like a musician or an artist and that is your primary job, then it will be subject to income tax. If you're from the UK and you are providing NFTs and selling NFTs and things like that, there's like a form that you can do. HMRC have like a series of tests known as badges of the trade, and that's sort of to determine whether it is as a main job or you are just selling NFTs for profit. If you do pass that test, then it would be considered a trade. Not a trade as in buying or selling, a trade as in like a a job. If you are just a degen like me and you are simply using NFTs to buy and sell, then any gains that you make from, you know, the acquisition of the NFT to then the disposition of the NFT, we'll use the fancy words, yeah, to the buying and selling of NFTs, you will end up paying any capital gains tax from the profit that you make from that. The same can be applied for losses as well. If you make losses within the trading of NFTs and even crypto, you can declare that as a loss to then sort of take away from the capital gains, so you don't have to pay as much in tax. So I suppose that I'm assuming that means that if you get rug pulled, say if you mint something for 0.5 Ethereum and it's a rug pull and you basically sell it for nothing, I'm assuming you can treat that as a loss. Go see a tax advisor for that, tax professional for that one. On the topic of expenses, things like gas fees and exchange fees as well can be deductible as expenses. And that's an expense that you can use almost for everything. So I suppose you could offset that as well from your capital gains. So if you're using Ethereum and paying hundreds of dollars in gas fees, then I suppose that's one bonus you can take from this. So hopefully that's shed a little bit more light on just some of the rules around taxes in the UK. The ones in the US are slightly different. I've seen a couple of different videos explaining that you can do things with Roth IRAs and stuff like that, but we don't have a form of that in the UK really. If you want me to do more tax videos for other countries, then I'm fine to do that. If you just check in the description down below, I will leave some sources, things that I've actually used to help me out in just finding these rules. Obviously, I've got the government website, which is where the rules actually are. And that's something I'd sort of recommend anyone that's in you know, different countries, is just to look on the government website and just type in crypto tax or NFTs, you know, whatever you need, and a lot of the info will already be there. I also found another really interesting website called Tax Summaries, and I'll leave that in the description below. Not sponsored. It just helped me out. You can basically just click on a country and it states all the different tax rules, allowances, that sort of thing. So it's a really nice and easy way to just figure out what you owe. In the future, I'll also provide a video just to compare a couple of different crypto tax tools as well, just to sort of help you out when it comes to filing taxes rather than doing it all manually. You could do it on a spreadsheet, but who really wants to write down thousands of transactions on a spreadsheet? Not me. I'll have some software do that for you. I've not actually used software before, but I'm assuming it will just take your wallet address, and well, you guys know that all transactions you make are on the blockchain, so I would imagine it scours through and does all of the hard work for you. Super useful. But yeah, we'll go over that in a separate video. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, then leave a like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, follow the other social medias, Instagram, Twitter, join the Telegram group, all of that stuff. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.